Yo, before we get things started, I wanted to show you guys some funny ass shit. So in case you've never seen this clip before, it made its way back into circulation into my timeline. The setup of it is Tyreek Hill is pretending to be an elderly man, and he's going around the streets of Miami trying to find someone to challenge him in a foot race. So they find this lady, kind of heavier set lady, but definitely towards the top, rather top heavy, I would say. And, well, let's go ahead and play the clip. Ooh. That clip actually reminded me of something that happened in my own personal life, unfortunately, in the front of the good old PTs. Vaughn and Raul, you guys may know where I'm going with this. Oh. Yeah, that definitely hurt my face a little bit. It was scabbed up for a while, but mostly, I would say that it hurt my pride. Now for the last clip comparison, I'm just going to put them all side by side. Everybody should know what clip this is. My least favorite quarterback of my favorite team. Yup. Alright. Enough tomfoolery. We got a fucking episode to film.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Week 2 of the NFL started off with the Chiefs versus Chargers game, which in the first quarter started off to be an amazing game. But as soon as Herbert threw that pick six, all the momentum shifted and basically the Chargers were trailing the whole time afterwards. It wasn't really competitive with the Chargers trailing behind the entire time. The final score of 27-24 doesn't really reflect how the entire game went. The Giants beat Carolina in a narrow victory, 19-16. The Jags served a bagel to the Colts, 24-0. The Cowboys with backup Cooper Rush defeated Joe Burrow and the Bengals, 20-17 in a game nobody expected that they could win, sacking Joe Burrow 6 times in the process. Does this raise any alarms for Bengals fans? Donnie, are you shitting your pants? The Jets with an amazing comeback victory over the Browns in Cleveland, 31-30 final score, scoring 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes of the game. It looks like their new mascot, Brownie the Elf, is 0-1 at home. The Dolphins get the most amazing victory of Week 2, coming back from a 21-point deficit with only 14 minutes left in the game, defeating Baltimore and Lamar Jackson, who by himself scored 50 points in fantasy. This game was a barn burner, holy shit, 42-38, making it an 80-point total, blasting the over-under, which was 44.5, almost doubling it. Mike Gesicki caught an amazing touchdown and proceeded to do the worst gritty ever known to man. He should be arrested for this. That right there is a gritty with no seasoning. Tua himself scoring 6 touchdowns through the air. Can we get some more of these games, schedule makers? Not Pittsburgh versus Cleveland on a Thursday night, which we'll go over a little bit later. And to round out the week, on Monday night we had a doubleheader of games which neither of were really competitive. The Bills clapped the Titans' cheeks 41-7. Derrick Henry got stuffed. With no A.J. Brown, the Titans might be in danger coming up offensively. And once again, Kirk Cousins pooped himself in the bright lights of prime time. 24-7 against the Eagles. Jalen Hurts looking nice. We'll have to see how they look going forward. In our fantasy league this week, in the Dub Club, Vaughn, Henson, Raul, Donnie, and me. Alright, for this week's fantasy recap, we're going to start off with Vaughn versus Eric. Zeus rained down lightning bolts on the Raiders of the Caribbean. Final score of 105-86. Eric once again with another disappointing week. His quarterback, Lamar Jackson, scoring more points than every other player on his roster combined. Put Lamar Jackson on anybody else's roster this week and they instantly win their matchup. But I guess he's going to have to pull himself together in week 3 In the next matchup, Henson climbed up the tower and dethroned Camelot from his castle. Despite having Amon-Ra and Kyler both having great performances, Jonathan Taylor ate a donut with the Colts versus the Jags and only scored 6 points. This let Henson creep up with almost every one of his players scoring in the double digits. Good job, Henson. Our next matchup, Donnie versus Hristo. Another dumpster fire, just like the Bengals offensive line. The only person who won this week while not scoring more than 100 points. Honestly, I just feel a little bit bad for Hristo, who's had to play undefeated teams, and coming up next week, he has to play Edwin. The final result of that matchup was 90-76. The fourth game of last week's matchups featured myself versus Greg, with the final score of 132-77. Josh Allen had an amazing performance with 37 points overall, although a majority of those points were going to me because I had Stephon Diggs, who caught 3 of those touchdowns. On top of that, I have to tip my hat to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, who had 6 sacks, 3 interceptions, and a defensive touchdown for a final score of 36 fantasy points. In this league, you can really get QB1 points from a defense. And in this week's matchup of the week, Raul finally massaged his first anus. Well, just a little bit, He just kind of twirled along the rim. He turned up the volume on his iPod Nano. But really, though, the reason why it's the matchup of the week is because going into Monday Night Football, Raul was down by 24 points. And he had the Bills' defense. And I think we all knew that there was a chance that he could still win. I definitely knew that I did. And lo and behold, they come up with 25 points to give him a victory over Chef of 129-128. Congrats, Raul, on your first victory. Welcome to the Dub Club, my friend. All right, power rankings. Alright, just to start off, I want to clarify that at first I was just doing these power rankings by doing the standings. We didn't have enough info from all the opponents, win-loss records, and all that stuff, yada yada. Well, I went ahead, I made the spreadsheet, as you might have seen in the group chat, with the formula and everything. It accounts for how many win-losses you have, how many win-losses your opponents have, also your final rankings. But now, even with the formulas, it still ended up to be the same as the standings. As the season progresses, these should even out and they should balance more, not to just be the same as the standings. As we can see, Hristo and Greg occupy the bottom 2 spots, with Eric staying exactly where he was. Henson, with his great victory over Edwin, jumped up above all the winless teams. Raul once again stayed stagnant. Chef dropped from 4th down to 5th, and Edwin dropped all the way down to 4th, with Donnie, Vaughn, and myself taking up the top 3 spots. Alright, for this week's Thursday Night Football preview, give me that amazing Jacoby Brissett versus Mitch Trubisky matchup. Give me that sweet 38.5 over-under. As a matter of fact, the last 2 games that these teams played against each other, when they did have decent-ish quarterbacks, in the early season, their final score was 10-15. Wow. And at the end of the season, they had a barn burner of a matchup for these 2 teams, which ended in 26-14. Overall, this one's slated to be a snooze fest, although it might surprise us. But regardless, you're playing your Nick Chubb, you're playing Deontay Johnson, because what the fuck else are you going to do? Alright, reminder before we wrap up this week's episode. The Giants are playing the Cowboys on Monday Night Football this week. Dak Prescott is out. Cooper Rush is starting for the Cowboys. The Giants are 2-0. We may have a chance of winning. There will be smiles, there will be tears, and there will be TTs. I'd love for everybody to join me for the game, and join me next week for another episode of the Fantasy Freestyle Podcast.